Favorite paint scheme. This one's actually kind of easy for me. I have three. I know that's cheating the system a little bit, but the first one, the very start of the season, Denny Hamlin's Daytona 500 paint scheme was so good looking to me. The front of the car, how it had the ombre effect to orange, and the back of the car had it a little bit to a point, kind of like the FedEx Arrow, kind of. I thought that looked really, really good, and almost wish it was his primary paint scheme. Almost, though. I love his primary paint scheme a little bit more. Then, an obvious favorite, I think, would be Chase Elliott's Hooters night paint scheme with the black and the orange. It always looks really good. Will always be a favorite of mine. And then for the Federated Auto Parts 400, Ryan Blaney actually had a really slick one. I don't know why it's giving me Rusty Wallace vibes, but I thought it looked really, really good. And definitely a die cast I'm going to have to get.
The best paint scheme for me, there's two. It's Chase Elliott's Lumar car, which I know Lumar's been a very controversial in terms of how they look, between Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott. And the other one is Hack Bowman's Nashville Neon Lights car. Those are my two favorites. I didn't put any throwbacks on the list, but those are my two favorites.
Best paint scheme of the year had to be William Byron's Exalta primary car, and that's just because it was a really good modern twist on the Rainbow Warrior, and I think the matte black really made the colors pop. Looked really, really good on track.
I gotta go with Blaney's Body Armor Edge car from the Coke 600. Gave me a real Ryan Newman look from years ago when he ran the Kodak cars. Just kind of was very reminiscent and very nostalgic for me.
So the worst paint scheme, and I think it's just because I would have to say it's Larson's Freightliner car, and that's just because Hendrick's really good at making paint schemes for any kind of sponsor there is, but I feel like they kind of missed the beat there. It kind of looked too dry, and it was in the dirt race. It really didn't pop. It was just a little bland for me.
That William Byron neon paint thing, the color of the year that he ran at Pocono. I don't know, that Raptor car was kind of funky looking too, that he ran 3 of the last 4 weeks. But that one he ran at Pocono in the double headers was gross. It looked like a mix of a green and yellow highlighter.
Least favorite paint scheme. I don't want to be rude, but my least favorite paint schemes is geared towards a team. For me as a whole, and this is not dissing the drivers, I love the drivers, but JTG Doherty just missed the mark this year. I don't know what it is with the quarter panel with the little semicircle of the secondary sponsor, I think, but I just didn't like it. I know Ricky Stenhouse Jr. had one with Tide, which I love Tide. I'm a sucker for Tide cars, but that just didn't look good. Ryan Preece, I think, had one with Nature Valley in the corner, and then he had one with Reese's, and it just didn't work. Maybe don't do that next season as a design idea.
Gotta be Anthony Alfredo Speedy Cash. I think looked like a giant booger flying down the racetrack. A giant loogie getting packed.
My favorite Darlington throwback is pretty obvious. It's the two John Andretti throwbacks. Our hero, fallen hero, Quinn Houff, and Eric Jones, of course.
Gotta go with Corey LaJoy, his tribute to Alan Quickie in the old number 7 Zurex car. That was one of the cars I really enjoyed looking at in the old NASCAR Chronicle book. For those of you that don't know, that's the big history book for any ultimate NASCAR fanatic. But I always enjoyed looking at that car in pictures, and then getting to see it in person this year was just phenomenal.
I would have to say, just because of the authenticity of it in every way, shape, and form, Corey LaJoy's Zurex car was the best throwback car. I mean, it's one thing to do a throwback with the sponsor. It's another thing to bring the sponsor back to the sport for one race to fit the perfect throwback. I mean, we've seen a couple times where, for an example, right off the top of my head, when Carl Edwards did a throwback to Tony Stewart's original Home Depot car, but they still used the Eris name, but they used it in the Home Depot text. That's cool. It's close, but it's not the same. For Corey LaJoy and his team to get Zurex on the car to make it a carbon copy of Alan Kulwicki's Zero X car. I mean, that's just perfect. It looked really good. It was good to see it back on the track for sure.
I would say this one's easy as well. It's easy to pick out the favorite paint schemes, but William Byron's Neil Bonnet throwback to the Valvoline looked so good. It's another one of the die casts I'm gonna have to get. But Hendrick Motorsports as a whole really nailed it this season with the throwback paint schemes. Alex Bowman throwing it back to Greg Ives, and then Kyle Larson throwing it back to his early racing days. Chase Elliott throwing it back to Alan Kulwicki. They did a really good job this year, and it was so hard to pick between those cars for me specifically. Even Ryan Blaney's was really good too. Joey Logano had an interesting one. Denny Hamlin's one was pretty cool with the sports clips, but definitely have to go with William Byron's throwback to Neil Bonnet.
Denny Hamlin versus the fans. There's nothing I get more joy out of than being a Denny Hamlin fan when Denny Hamlin decides to trigger other fans. He truly lives for everybody else to not like him, and that only makes me love him more every day.
I mean, it's a pretty unanimous answer, I would say. Kevin Harvick versus Chase Elliott. I mean, that was the best because, I mean, they just continuously went at it. And of course there was the altercation, and then Harvick literally looking in his mirror in the Roval, and that cost him a shot at the title. So, because Chase was hunting him down. So, rivalry of the year for sure, Harvick versus Elliott.
I know everyone is going to say Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick for this one, or something with Denny Hamlin and William Byron, but we're forgetting one really important one, and that is Chase Elliott versus pre-race inspection. And it's kind of a joke, but I'm being realistic here. He failed, I think, 6 total pre-race inspections that sent him to the back of the pack. I always think, like, what could have been if he didn't fail all of those? So for me, that's the biggest rivalry. It's not person versus person. It's like person versus technology versus nature. We all know the tropes and books. I don't really know, but for me, definitely Chase Elliott versus the pre-race inspections was a major rivalry for me this year.
Gotta go with the early season beef between the Penske boys of Logano and Keselowski. Bowman. Even though he's the hack job, according to Hamlin, he's still got a bunch of wins this year.
So at first I was going to choose William Byron, but then I was like, well, not necessarily improved. He started off the season really hot and just kept going. So I went with Chris Buescher, actually. He led 93 laps this season, which is the most in his career. He had 8 top 10s and 1 top 5, which I know is 1 less than he had last season. But we consistently heard his name more in the broadcast. We saw him towards the front of the pack. He was consistently in the top 10 or 15, and he cracked the top 10 a lot of times during these races. Might not have finished there, but he's shown that he has been able to get better, and his team has been a lot stronger this season. So for that reason, Chris Buescher is the most improved driver for me this season, 2021.
Most improved driver? I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney. And here's why. 3 wins, a new career high, winning on 3 different tracks. Similar aero packages, Michigan and Atlanta, but multiple wins in a season, a very legitimate championship 4 claim, I think. I thought it was a toss-up between him and Chase for that 4th spot based on the seasons they had. So I think that. And Brad leaving, I think, makes Ryan Blaney have a chance to be the face of Penske, and that's a very, very good spot to be, because it's also the face of Ford in NASCAR, in my opinion.
Most improved, I'd have to say Bubba Wallace. You know, leaving Richard Petty Motorsports and going to 2311, a brand new team, and it took them 1 year to get their first win, and that's really, really, really impressive. You know, Bubba, when he first went to Richard Petty, he finished 2nd in the Daytona 500, and everybody started to think, wow, he really does have what it takes. And then everybody started criticizing why he was still in Cup. So for him to silence the doubters, it was a rain-shortened race. He's always going to have that asterisk next to it, but a win's a win. And kudos to Bubba Wallace for improving. I love this quote so much, and it's just because like it kind of reminds you that like every driver is focused on themselves, but they're also fully aware of what's going on around them. And it's after Alex Bowman dumped Denny Hamlin for the win at Martinsville. Hamlin says he's got the best car every week and he finishes 10th. So that's all he could do to win the race. He had to dump me to win the race. So yeah, that was the best one to throw a bomb like that at Alex Bowman. That was pretty awesome. He has the best car every week and finishes 10th.
Many. I think my favorite is it's Denny Hamlin. It's Championship 4 day, and he's talking about the Alex Bowman hat shirts. And to summarize it, he's saying that every other driver is boring, so he has to help them be interesting. I don't know the exact quote, but I'll leave it at that. That is my favorite. Like I said in this interview already, Denny Hamlin's constant pettiness. I live for him on Twitter. I will go out saying that Denny Hamlin is the most important driver in NASCAR to the fans and to the sport itself, because he is both an owner, a driver, and a media personality. Something a lot of drivers can't say that they are.
Listening to the radio conversations from the scanner sounds that they post on YouTube, there was an interesting conversation early on in the season from the Daytona Road Course with AJ Allmendinger's team, and they just talked about dollar store belts for some odd reason. And I just found that so amusing. So not necessarily a quote, but like my favorite conversation of the year would have to be just AJ Allmendinger and his crew's conversation about dollar store belts during the middle of a race, because that was just super funny to me.
To quote Kevin Harvick, "God damn, I'm ready to go rip somebody's freaking head off." Gotta love that. Gotta love that fire and intensity in the old man still. Gotta love it. Also Harvick going winless. He really picked up momentum during the playoffs, and it was a shame that he wasn't able to capitalize and get a checkered flag this season.
So the biggest shock of the season would have to be Logano winning the Bristol Dirt Race. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at majority of the Cup field, if not half the Cup field, they all grew up racing on dirt. Joey Logano was not one of those kids. He grew up racing quarter midgets, Legends cars. That was all on asphalt. That was all on concrete. He never raced on dirt. And he started his dirt racing career when they announced the Bristol Dirt Race, just so that he could have some kind of experience on it. And sure enough, his first go in a Cup car on dirt, he gets the win. Everybody and their mother was picking Kyle Larson to win that race. But Joey Logano comes out with the win. And I made sure to say, regardless of what everyone else says, he's the best dirt racer in NASCAR.
Brad Keselowski making the round of 8. Coming into the year, it wouldn't have been surprising. But if you ask me, going into the Darlington playoff race, I would have been surprised that he made the round of 8. And not only did he make the round of 8, he put up a very good fight in the round of 8 too, I thought. So Brad making it that far based on the season he had. If you want to make a whole season picture, I'll go with like Matt DiBenedetto's like fall, like on the track, off the track. He really kind of fell out of races with the fans and kind of on the track. Like it was just such a disappointing like wet fart of a season that like it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It really does, and it's all culminating together as to why he doesn't have a ride next year, in my opinion.
There's a few shocking moments I toyed with. Obviously, Kevin Harvick finishing 5th in point standings was pretty shocking. Brad Keselowski able to turn around his season was an amazing shock. But I gotta say, the Pocono race when Kyle Larson lost his tire in the last turn I lost it myself. I couldn't believe what I was watching. We all know the story. Kyle Larson dominates the race. He wins. It's a done deal. Then he loses the tire. I'm up from my couch. Alex Bowman wins, and I'm screaming at my TV like, what just happened? That was, for me, so enjoyable to watch as a fan. Not the fact that Kyle Larson had the tire blow, but just the shocking moment of it's not over till it's over. And I was really reminded of that in that moment. So I would definitely have to say Kyle Larson losing that tire. It was unfortunate, but entertainment-wise, it was pretty wild.
The best moment of the year, and I think I have two for this, but I'm going to say the one that gets the nod is everyone turning off their TVs at the end of the Pocono race, and Larson's in the lead, walking away with it. And then turn 3, he blows a tire, goes right into the fence, and Alex Bowman says, "Okay, I'll take it if you don't want it," and goes on to win the race. I mean, that just shows, and they said it at the end of the championship race as Larson was walking away from Truex. It ain't over. We know it's not over. The race, they don't pay the check until the checkered flag falls. So that was really, really cool. And the other one that I would say came a close second was every single person on the Fox broadcast team and all the fans picking Kyle Larson to finish the job at Dover and dominate that race, and loses to, guess who? Alex Bowman. So we'll see if that trend sticks around for 2022, actually.
Pocono doubleheader. That was really fun to watch and see two drastically different races with two drastically different outcomes.
Best moment is also a shock moment, I would say, and that is when Kevin Harvick was caught mirror racing and wrecked himself into the wall at the Charlotte Roval race. The feud with him and Chase Elliott going strong, and we all thought something was going to happen. Obviously, Chase Elliott got dumped by Kevin Harvick in that race. Came back around. We all thought a championship hopes were over. Elliott saved himself. Kevin Harvick did not. For me, that was the best moment because as somewhat of a Chase Elliott fan, I felt relief as a fan. So I think for that, that would have to be the best moment of the season. And like I said, Harvick was able to finish the season with I need to stop. Best moment, no explanation attached, would be Kevin Harvick caught mirror racing, wrecked himself into the wall for the Charlotte Roval, ended his championship hopes. It's just karma. Chase Elliott fan or not, it's karma. It's what it is.
My favorite moment is the Darlington, the Southern 500. It's Kyle Larson trying to video game it to beat Denny Hamlin. I'm not a Kyle Larson fan. I'm really not a Hendrick Motorsports fan. But I appreciate the blind faith attempt that he took there. And more so, I'm happier that the blind faith attempt didn't work and Denny Hamlin still won, right? But the finish of that race, what a phenomenal race in general. It felt long, but it was a phenomenal race with a phenomenal finish. I really love that moment. And my other one, if I had to give it a second one, this is one that I don't know if TV did right, but we're at the All-Star race. I was at the All-Star race, of course. And Chase Elliott almost left hooking William Byron across the infield at Texas Motor Speedway in the All-Star race in like the 5th round of it or something, like straight pushing him around the track and almost turned him. Would have been some great teammate-on-teammate drama in a completely meaningless race at a bit of a washed-up racetrack.
Favorite race. So I actually keep an Excel spreadsheet of my ratings throughout the season, above or below the yellow line. And the one that I had rated the highest was the Southern 500, actually. I thought it was a really decent race. Of course, my memory sucks, but obviously this is why I keep the ratings. And I just remember thinking it was very fun to watch, and for it being a 500 race, I was pretty intrigued most of the time. So, and that says something about that. But then in second place, I had a tie, like the freeway tie for second place. I had the Geico 500 at Talladega. And then I had the Roval, which regardless of the Harvick thing that happened, I thought that was a really good race too. And then the Coke Zero Sugar 400, I also really liked as well. The cutoff race getting into the playoffs. Always those high stakes races. But those were my favorite races of the season. Obviously, the number one spot going to the Darlington Southern 500.
Got to go to the Southern 500, the opening round of the playoffs. A lot of drama, a lot of top guys getting knocked out. It was just pandemonium. And then the video game swing for the fences that Kyle Larson had against Denny Hamlin didn't work out too well for him, but we all know how that went when it came to Phoenix. The other guy ended up on top.
This is not going to be anyone that anybody else says, I'm sure. But Circuit of the Americas. I know I was there, so I'm obviously a bit biased. I'm a very passionate defender of the racetrack. But I'll say this, weather created field strategy, it created drama. There was lots of passing opportunities, I thought. You know, you had a bit of a dry portion to start the race. I mean, it was kind of constant rain, but there was enough to be like dry. You could be on slick tires or you can be on wet tires. I think that race had a lot of strategy built into it from the weather. And I think you'll see it again, even if it's a dry race next year. But the in-person at-track experience, I think, was better than what TV is going to give it credit for. But if I had to pick one I saw on TV, I'll give the the Homestead race, all the way at the beginning of the season, I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, but by default, I was kind of teetering around, but I would just have to say the race at COTA, and that's just because, I mean, you've got the best stock car drivers on the planet racing in conditions that no stock car is built for. And that is, I blame NASCAR entirely for that race, because they were so determined to say the rain tires work, the rain tires work. They don't. When you have inches of water on the track, no tire's going to save you from that at that speed. So by default, I say that, but I do caution people to hold their judgment of NASCAR Circuit of the Americas. Let them get a good weather race in before you can have a true opinion of that racetrack with a NASCAR Cup car on it. And with the next gen car coming out, it's supposed to be a lot better for road course racing. It's supposed to be designed for it. So hopefully that'll make it a little bit better for NASCAR fans. But just by default, I'd have to say the COTA race, because that was just a mess.
Oh, jeez. The Bristol Dirt Race, hands down. I'll never understand why they do this to Bristol. I think it's the dumbest thing NASCAR does. Shouts out to that first Atlanta race for giving this one a good run for its money, though. If Ryan Blaney doesn't win that race and doesn't catch Kyle Larson, maybe it's the Atlanta race, but I despise Bristol Dirt so much. There are clips of me on pretty much all over my own show that I had, Dipstick Debates, and like raging about this stupid dirt race, and I still can't get past it. And we're getting it again next year, but I cannot stand the Bristol Dirt. Why you dirt up your best short track, your best track, when you put dirt on it, boggles my mind. NASCAR must love to see me fidget and be upset about this one.
Gotta be the Coke 600. It was boring. You saw one guy dominate the whole thing. There's no passing. It was boring this year. I'm sorry. It's my home track, but it was boring.
Yeah, this is not a secret. My least favorite race was the Daytona 500. It just, with the rain delay and everything, the pacing was off. It just didn't feel, it's always a race that's so hyped up, and then is either living up to the expectations or it just lands flat with me. And the way the race finished with the huge crash and how everything played out, I hated it. So I gave it a 30%. And the races that came close to that was 49% for the Texas Motor Speedway race, the playoff race. I thought it was just dull and boring, but I gave it benefit of the doubt. I think I gave it more benefit of the doubt because it was a playoff race. And then I also gave the Richmond Raceway race for the playoffs a 50%. Richmond doesn't land with me either. So those were the races I just didn't care for this season.
There were a few, obviously, first-time winners, right? And some feel-good winners here and there. So I'll name a few. My first one that comes to mind is Christopher Bell's first win at the Daytona Road Course, beating out Chase Elliott, who obviously had the car to beat that day. Another one that comes to mind is Denny Hamlin's win at Darlington, outdoing Kyle Larson, finally winning that first race of the season. But I think my favorite win is AJ Allmendinger's win at the Indianapolis Road Course. His raw emotion, I think after AJ got suspended, I think he's always had such an appreciation for every race he gets. You see it in the Xfinity Series, you see it in the Cup Series, you see it when he races other, cars and stuff, and so whatever. AJ's just such a raw, emotional dude, and I think it helps that he's 5'6". So you see this tiny little man, not tiny little, but this short man with all this energy and passion and love in the world for what he does. It just seems so pure. And tying it in with his ties to Myers Shank Racing and ELLIOTT Neves, who won the Indianapolis 500, of course, 3 months earlier or whatever. Those small ties to each other between Colleague and Myers Shank and Allmendinger and Castro Neves really made it quite a special win, I think, even though it should have been Denny Hamlin that won that race.
I could go so many different directions with this. I could say Ryan Blaney getting his first multiple wins in a season. I could say Kyle Larson winning the title and his just emotion, validation, I think. I could even say Eric Almirola's Cinderella story win at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, but I think for me, I'm going to go with AJ Allmendinger's Indy Road Course win, and I think it's just because the excitement from his team, anytime a Kaulig racing driver wins, it is a party, and I love it. It's such a family atmosphere. I absolutely love that team. I love the energy, the emotion from the crew, from the owners. I just loved it. It brought me life. Even if AJ isn't a full-time Cup Series driver, and yeah, sometimes when a non-full-time Cup Series driver wins a race or in any series, it can make people a little mad. That one made me extremely happy. So because of that, I gotta go with AJ Allmendinger being my favorite win of the 2021 season.
This one's close and near to my heart. I was going crazy jumping up and down on the recliner, believe it or not my couch. Blaney over Larson at Atlanta. He outdueled him, outlasted him with those worn out Goodyear tires.
I think about best win of the season. You know, it's easy to say Bubba winning Talladega, but that was really, really big for NASCAR. The first African-American to win since Wendell Scott in the 60s, and it took till 2021 for the Scott family to take ownership of the trophy. Give you an idea of how far NASCAR's come. You know, that one's a good one. Michael McDowell winning the Daytona 500. I mean, this is a guy that should have died at Texas in 2008 after that wreck in qualifying. I mean, I say that genuinely, like, no person should have survived a crash at 190 miles an hour dead on into a wall and then do 7 flips after that. For him to come back from that, from driving for I would say a B+ team in Michael Waltrip Racing at the time, that were still trying to gain their ground, to dropping down to some lower teams and just starting parking, just staying relevant in Cup racing, to now being a Daytona 500 champion, is the true idea of never giving up. If you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life. He loves what he does, and it all paid off for him in the Daytona 500. All it took was for the Penske cars to part the seas for him. I say that as a Logano fan, and the blood slowly pours out of my heart. But hey, a win again. Like I said about Bubba, a win's a win.
Hey everyone, it's Taylor. Thank you so much for checking out our NASCAR 2021 superlative list. For more above the yellow line content, make sure you check out the playlist on the screen. I think it's something you might like. Also, look at all our socials linked in the description below, but before you do that, make sure you like and subscribe, share this with your friends and family, and until next time, we'll see ya.